Welcome to the video demo series for Configure.IT. Unleash the hassle-free way to build bug-free mobile apps in the quickest possible turnaround time. In this video, I want to teach you how to configure your app to support multiple languages. Also, we're going to take a look at how to make it a universal app, and then we're going to take a look at some application settings and some screen settings. So the first thing we want to do is for multiple language apps is to come over to our project settings. Now what we need to do is come over to this section where it says multilingual. We'll go ahead and turn that on. And then we'll come over to our additional languages and we'll select the languages that we want to use. So we'll select English and we'll select Spanish. And we'll click Save Settings. And now we can go back to the App Console. So now that we're back on our App Console, what we want to do is go ahead and take a look at how the controls have been affected by turning multi-language on. So we'll click on our button, Search by Distance, and let's go ahead and take a look at the title. So you can see here, now that we have the multi-language turned on, we have an additional button here. It's called Multilingual Values. So if we click that and open up this window, we can see that we have English and Spanish. So these are the values that are going to be placed on the button for the English, and then for Spanish, this will be placed on the button. So the way we get the values is actually using the Google API, and it will translate this into Spanish or any other language that we've chosen. If for whatever reason this is incorrect, we can always go in here and edit the values. So we'll go ahead and change that back. We'll hit save. And so we can go through each control and look at the same thing. So we'll go to search by city and we'll go down to title and we can bring that button up and this is what it'll say for search by city. Okay, so now we need to provide the user a way to choose between English and Spanish, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to use a radio button, and so we'll just bring over a radio button and we'll drag and drop it. Now you could easily have used a switch control, or if you're doing more than two, then probably the best way to do it is to use a picker. So now that we have the radio button, we need to go ahead and change the title. So we'll type title. And the normal title, we're going to choose English. And the button state, we want to go ahead and choose selected. And we're going to change this to English as well. Now we need to change the width, and we'll just do 90. And for the second one, we'll just kind of space them out a little bit. And for the title, we want to say Spanish. And then we want to come down here and we want to change the button state to selected, and the button title we need to change back to Spanish. So now we can take a look at the multilingual value. So we'll just check that and you can see that it's translated it into Spanish. So we'll click save. And we need to come up here and change the width, and we'll change that to 90 as well. So now we need to provide the ability that when the user selects Spanish, that the language of the app would change to Spanish. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to come up to Action, Click. So we're going to select an action, and we're going to save session permanently. And the parameter is going to be a new session. And you'll notice here, now that we have multi-language, we'll have this session variable called app language. So we'll go ahead and select app language. For the source value, it's going to be a static value, and we're going to type in ES, which is the app language code for Spanish. We'll click save. Now we need to do the same thing for English. So we'll come over to English, and we'll click on Actions, Click, and then we'll save it in session permanently, and we'll do the session variable app language, and the session variable for English is EN. So we'll click save. So how do you know the values to put in for each session variable? Well, it's pretty simple. We just need to come over to our back end, and then we want to come over here to multi-languages on the back end and go ahead and turn that on. And we'll click OK. and we'll click Add New, and we're going to add Spanish and add languages. Click OK. So now we can come over to our database configuration and go to MySQL. And then we can take it this mod language and we'll go ahead and view that data. And now you can see that we have English and Spanish. So as you can see, the English is EN and the Spanish is ES. So now that we have that configured, why don't we go ahead and take a look at it in the app. So as you see, I've downloaded the project, and if I click on Spanish, you see that all the fields change to Spanish, including our radio buttons. If we switch back to English, it's changed so they sit back into English, and Spanish, and then back to English. So that's how you configure a multi-language app. So what I'd like to do now is to teach you how to create a universal app. And a universal app is an app that is designed for an iPhone and for an iPad or for a tablet. To do that, we're going to go back to our app console, and we're going to go back to our settings, and we'll click on project settings. And we're going to come over here and we're going to not just have mobile, but we're also going to have a tablet selected as well. So we'll go ahead and click Save Settings, and we'll let the server crumble the data. And now we can go back to our app console. So now we're back on our picker screen, and you can see over here on the screen list, we have an additional icon right here. So we have the mobile devices, and then we have the iPad device. So if we click on the iPad, so you can see that the iPad gives us a much bigger screen. Now if we go back to the mobile device, and let's take a look at these controls. So we'll select on the select category, and we'll take a look at the advanced options. So we'll click on the advanced button. So we'll go ahead and let it expand as the width gets larger. We'll click Save, and then we'll do it for this button right here, and you can see what's going to happen. So we'll click Hide again, Advance, and then we're going to let it expand. We'll click Save. So now that we made those two changes, we have to tell the iPad to go ahead and make those changes as well. So when we first told Configure.IT that we wanted to create a tablet, what it did is it took all of our settings and all of our controls and made them and put them on the iPad. Now that we've made some changes, we need to tell Configure.IT to go ahead and sync those changes. So the way we do that is we come over here to the screen list, and we tell this page, the picker page, to go ahead and sync. So we're going to go ahead and click that sync button. Now we can tell it that we want to sync individual controls on the page, or if we want to just go ahead and sync everything. Now the sync data source is if we made a change on the mobile device and we want to go ahead and sync the data source to the iPad, then we can go ahead and do that. And if we do a hard sync, it's basically going to sync all the resolution properties as well. So that's what we want. We'll go ahead and click Sync. OK. All right, so now everything has been synced. We'll go ahead and close this window, and we'll click on the iPad. And now you can see that the search by distance is a lot wider. Now let's take a look at this select category because it didn't expand. And let's take a look at our object tree. And we actually did the picker, but we actually need to do the label underneath it. So we'll select the label multiple selection, and we'll go ahead and have that expand as well. Because the picker has a transparent background, you couldn't tell that it expanded. So now we'll come over here to our screen list and sync again. We'll just select all, sync, OK. And now we can close it, and we'll come take a look at the iPad. So now you can see that the select category label has now been expanded as well. So what this allows us to do is that if we wanted to, we could have two different layouts, one for an iPhone and one for an iPad. And that's how you create universal apps. Pretty simple. So now what I want to do is talk to you about application settings and some screen settings. So we'll click back on the mobile device. And we'll come over here to application settings. So we'll open up our application settings. And so what application settings does is it applies design settings throughout the app. Okay, so as you're building things and as you're adding controls, they all have the same appearance without you having to go and configure each control. So let's take a look at this. So the base navigation bar will have a background color of blue, or it could have a background image if we choose. And so the navigation bar is the bar that goes across the top. The navigation button will have a background of blue, and the font face will be Helvetica bold and a font size of 15. Now again, we can change these to be whatever we want. The disabled navigation button, we'll choose that, and we can have an image. The title color will be white, and then we can choose for normal, selected, highlighted, just like we would for any normal button. And the navigation label is the text on any navigation button. This will be its configuration, Helvetica bold, font size of 17, and a color of white. The text property will be the text in the middle. Again, it will be Helvetica bold, 16 with a dark blue color. And so if we add a button, let's go ahead and change this one to red. And we'll click OK. And we want to do the language, we'll do a Helvetica new, light. And we'll leave the font size 16 and the disabled color white, but let's take a look at the normal, will be white as well. And then all of our page settings, if we want a specific color background, we'll do white. And then pickers, here's our toolbar, title color, the tint color, and the bar button tint color. So in this case, we went ahead and changed the button, so we'll go ahead and click Save. So now every time we add a button, it should have a red background. So we'll go ahead and add a button. We'll go to Control List, and we'll drag a button over. Okay, so now that the button's added, it looks blue, but let's go ahead and take a look at it. And if we go down and we type in color, you can see that our background color is in fact red. Now we can verify this by taking a look at it in the app. So I've gone ahead and refreshed the project, and you can see that our button does in fact have a red background. So now let's take a look at some of the page settings. So the application setting applies application wide, but if we want to change the theme or the format for a specific page, we can do that by going to Screen Settings. And here we can apply formatting to the specific screen. So again, we can change the text, we can change button background colors, we can change the state, the image, and we can also change the picker. So that's the settings that we can change for each screen. So for this button, we'll go ahead and change it to a dark green. We'll click OK. So now that when we add an additional button for this screen, the button will be green as it will be overriding the application settings. So what we need to do is go ahead and save this. So now all we need to do is drag over an additional button. Now you can see our button has a green background, and we can verify this by going down to color, and you can see our background color is green. So I've refreshed our app, and now you can see that our button is now green. So again, you have to remember the application settings applies application wide, and it's a great starting point. So then you can go in and change your settings for each screen by going into the screen settings. And that's how you configure your application settings and your screen settings. Want to learn more? Visit our Help Center for additional tutorials, our Support Center, and our online community, where our support team will assist you. Keep configuring.